Christian.
Jesus died on a cross. I go to church every Sunday. Just got out here. Then I read this. It says Jesus died on a cross for a rotten hooker.
I thought I was a good Christian.
I go to church every Sunday.
I thought I was a good Christian.
I go to church every Sunday. I'm a very religious person.
I thought I was a good Christian.
The very lies the serpent told to Eve in the Garden of Eden. Garden of Eden. Garden of Eden. The gospel of Jesus Christ spreads confusion and promotes lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ spreads confusion and promotes lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ spreads confusion and promotes lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ spreads confusion and promotes lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ spreads confusion and
It's Bob's turn.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of This Non-Religious Life. Today is Sunday, October 12th. I totally had to look at the date because I don't know what day it is. And broadcasting from the holiest of holy places in Virginia, Matt Brake.
Hi.
And from Zombie Popcorn headquarters, which evidently is now on fire, Jason.
Happy Halloween.
And unfortunately, we don't have Ken tonight. He's MIA, but hopefully we'll recover him soon. So it's been a while, but we've managed to get another show in, and lots to talk about, I guess.
Yes. Before we start, I want to do a plug. We now have a Zombie Popcorn Windows mobile app, and you can watch all the shows from that app. You can communicate. It's even set up so you can actually call us or email us as you watch the shows in the app. I'm working on an update now, and you'll be able to actually watch the live broadcast through the app as well. So that's the next update. So I just want to throw that out there. If you have a Windows device, Windows PC, Windows tablet, or phone, you can go to the Windows Store and download it for free. All right.
That is amazing.
It is amazing.
All right, so we don't have Ken, so we're kind of like we're winging it. But what has it been about a month since our last show? We'll try and do better. I guess the first thing that bears talking about has got to be, because we always beat this drum so much, is that the Supreme Court has decided not to rule on the gay marriage cases, and groups like the Family Right Council are having a fit.
They are, and it's funny though, because now that that's happened, like this past week, did you see that Boehner, like the Republicans are doing a whole rebranding effort, and Boehner is now trying to like woo the LGBT community to the Republican Party. Did you see that? They're trying to open up the tent.
Yeah, I saw something about that. In fact, it goes so far that they were saying that Boehner always wears a pink tie now, so as to make himself more gay friendly.
It's executive salmon.
Right. It's not pink. It's executive salmon. No, hey, I think that is the. I kind of wish that the court would have heard a case, so then they could say definitively. Instead, it becomes just like another small incremental gain. But I think overall it should be regarded as just the that momentum that equality has gotten within the country. Did you see the most recent XKCD comic?
No.
You read XKCD? So it's a graph of how interracial marriage trailed by about 30 years behind public opinion, and how public opinion is way ahead of same-sex marriage. So most people approve of same-sex marriage, although it's still illegal in some states. So it was just an interesting parallel. So I think they said like interracial marriage in the comic, like it was completely legal throughout the entire country in 1991, maybe, or I don't know, 71. Shit, when was it? Did we lose Matt?
He's back.
I'm still here.
So interracial marriage was fully legal in 1967, but public opinion didn't have majority approval until 1995 for interracial marriage. And then for same-sex marriage, majority approval was 2011, and we've just now hit the majority of access of same-sex marriage in states. So it's weird, but there it is. So, history bends towards justice, yada yada yada. I still wish the Supreme Court would have said something. I wish they would have said, like, made the decision, but I think that they sort of took the easy way out.
Dude, I think this kind of goes back to my whole thing about the Roberts Court. Like the Roberts Court ends up pissing everyone off. And I kind of like it. I kind of like it because it's so it's like no one, not that it's always best to, because it can always just be a mediocre solution, but at the same time, this goes to my whole thing. Everyone talks about some people talk about the Roberts Court as they sold us out if they're on the right with, healthcare. And then you have these people over here who are they're this conservative bastion, Citizens United.
No, I see that. I totally see that because I always say that, so the Supreme Court and making those decisions, it becomes about compromise. And I always say that compromise is when both parties are unhappy. So there you go. So maybe Roberts is a master at compromise.
Dude, because I said this actually before at one point, because when I think last time we had a show, we talked about Citizens United, and I was like, dude, the moderate in me is very happy. This is so great. It's obviously not, the court's polarized, but their decisions haven't been polarized. I think Roberts has really kept himself from coming off like the Rick Santorum of the Supreme Court.
That's terrible. No, I know. Like I said, it's just it's for social justice stuff like that. It's like you get an inch, but you want the mile. So,
well, and it's funny you say that because I always think of an essay Jason sent me once. Actually, I was thinking about it after the decision was made, and I was walking to class, and I was like, "Oh, that's so great, centrism, woo!" And I thought about the essay Jason sent me. I'm not going to say who the author was because it was a controversial author, but it's a ship that's heading towards disaster, and as opposed to changing the course of the ship, the captain keeps giving everyone a blanket to satisfy them temporarily, so they don't really change what needs to change, but they play to the popular crowd and just keep everyone happy while the ship keeps sailing to oblivion.
And the ship boys guys. Yes, Ship of Fools is the short story, and it's by Ted Kaczynski. I can never say his last name. The Unabomber. We'll just say that he wrote it.
I thought it was Tim McVeigh.
No, it was.
Stoker has an excellent eye for metaphor.
It's actually a really wonderful story. I love it. That's why I shared it with Matt.
Yeah, no, it really is a good essay, and I think it's very telling for. It's the problem with centrism and the moderate position, because it kind of critiques that in some ways, because by being moderate, you don't really do anything to necessarily maybe change the course of a destructive path. The pushback is obviously that we live in a world full of ideologies, so it's kind of, it might just be turtles all the way down, but I appreciate Kaczynski's argument.
Yeah.
There's some people that would, or I know like Dawkins and Harris and those guys, that they sort of rail against the moderate. In any case, they always say that the moderates leave room for extremists, or they open the door for extremists.
Yeah, but I almost feel like that almost pins Dawkins into a ideological corner. He becomes he is an ideologue. He's not, and moving beyond data to make certain, he makes certain worldview and philosophical points that he does become an ideologue in the process. Complete with full use ad hominem. which is
Yeah.
fine. And I take his point. Like I said, it's the problem with moderation is that you end up maybe doing something terrible, not as well as you could do if you really tried. Like,
Yeah. It wasn't as awful as it could have been.
yeah, but with Dawkins, I mean, I take his point. I find Dawkins himself to be ideological, which I mean he can afford to be because he's not in a position of power and culture. Like it's not the Richard Dawkinses that are grabbing the ears of politicians for the most part.
Before we were on the show, we didn't talk about this, but did you see the Sam Harris debacle on Bill Maher with did you see that? You know what I'm talking about? It was Sam Harris on the Bill Maher. It was Real Time with Bill Maher, and then the other guy was Ben Affleck, and Ben Affleck went after Sam Harris, and the way it turned out was that, and they were arguing about moderate Muslims, and and Affleck had this very sort of magnanimous attitude about it, where he was like, look, these people, nobody's all bad. You guys can't paint all Muslims with this one brush. They're not all extremists. But Maher and Sam Harris were both on the same page in that they were like, look, here is a religion that tells you their party line, the orthodox view of in Muslim religion is that if apostasy is met with death, that is what you get as an apostate in the Muslim religion. And Sam Harris is talking about, like, I'm not talking about people, I'm talking about ideas, and he's saying that the Muslim religion is the other load of bad ideas. And I know we didn't prep this at all, but did you see that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about. I didn't get around to watching it, because then Reza Aslan also responded to it on an interview. So I'm actually kind of sad I haven't seen that whole debacle yet. But yes, I have heard about it.
Really, I mean, but that was their whole argument in a nutshell. The whole thing was only 5 or 6 minutes long, and Maher and Harris were saying that sure, there are Muslim moderates, but even the Muslim moderates adhere to this tenet that says infidels and apostates should be put to death. But at the same time, though, and I was thinking about this, is that there are people who are Christian that look at homosexuality and pull out the Leviticus thing and say that if you man lays with another man, it is an abomination. So there are Christians who have this bad idea that homosexuality is a sin punishable by death. But that doesn't make all Christians bad people.
Right.
And I don't know. I don't know. So when does it become okay to sort of pick and choose others, and then because Christianity does it too.
Yeah, I mean the problem with comparing Islam to Christian. I mean there is a problem with comparing Christianity to Islam only in as much as we treat our text differently than Islam. Like there's no Old New Testament division, which in Christianity is actually really, really key in terms of how the Old Testament is seen as a shadow versus the New Testament. So I know what my Christian interpretive strategies would be. Can you guys hear me, by the way?
Yeah. Okay,
good, because I look like I have a slow internet.
You're coming in out, but I can totally hear you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I can't speak for how a Muslim would address the Quran, because I'm not an insider to that faith, so I don't know what interpretive strategies or what hermeneutics a moderate Muslim would use for the apostasy passage. I probably should ask, because actually one of the top scholars in Islamic theology teaches at George Mason University, Sajidina, who's met the Ayatollah and all this other stuff. In fact, the Ayatollah censured him from teaching on Islam, I think. Because like a community complaint. But anyway, I can't speak for the moderate community. I would need to look at some more of the scholarship a bit more. As far as Christians and using and how we would interpret, I mean, for me, the issue becomes an Old and New Testament issue. Like a theonomist, for instance, would think that the Old Testament law should apply to our civil laws. I think a more consistent reading of the New Testament puts aside and we've talked about this, the civic and ceremonial aspect to the Old Testament. Like it becomes like Hebrews talks about. Go ahead.
We have talked about that before, and I totally see your point there, where there is that importance of the division between the Old Testament. And remember, I was sending you those things. I was like, well, what about this? What about this? You're like, civic, and and there was this point where, you know, in the history of the faith, where they said, oh, okay, these old rules don't apply anymore, and essentially, you know, here's the new rules, to quote Bill Maher, I guess, because that's his thing, new rules. But I don't know if Islam has ever had that. It's always been one consistent. I mean, there's been schisms in Islam, right? There's been breaks, right? There's different sects of Islam, but there's no
Bob.
Islamic faith. Yes,
we are losing you. You keep cutting out.
Hello.
Yeah, from what I know of Islam, one, I mean, within any faith, there's always an evolution and there's always growth. So within Islam, there is a growth and an evolution within the text between where Muhammad starts and where he ends. There's a growth and evolution. You're right. There's no like stark division between the beginning and end of the Quran. And I'm not an expert on the Quran. From what I understand from having talked to Sachedina, though, within Islam, and actually this tends to be the point espoused by Judaism and Islam, that that there is no orthodox, quote, church within either of those faiths. Like Muslims and Jews tend to see Christianity as a religion of beliefs, and Islam and Judaism see themselves as religions of actions, where there aren't sects per se, because it's all about practice, even though there are differences of interpretation. Like they don't define themselves in the same denominational way that Christians do, which is really fascinating. I wish I was a comparative religious scholar, but I'm not.
Well, okay, so
and go ahead.
So I try not to, you know, like if I were to meet someone who was a Muslim, I would try to like push down my own biases, but I would have to ask that question: is, you know, as a Westerner, as a non-Islamist, as an atheist, does this person think that I should die? I mean, is that a question I should ask? And you know, for people for gay culture, if someone's a homosexual and they meet a devout Christian, do they ask the question like, well, does this person think that I should be put to death? I mean, I don't know about that. I can't speak to that, but I do know that if I met someone who was Muslim, I would wonder, you know, do they think that as an atheist, as a Westerner infidel, do I deserve to die? Is that what they're thinking when they're like making nice at a cocktail party?
Yeah, I think it's far more complicated than that.
Yeah.
Only because of different cultures, different nations. Like moderate Islam in the U.S. is a different phenomenon than Islam in Gaza. You know what I mean? So some of this, I mean, ends up being geopolitical as well, and like, because some would even argue that, I mean, even within the issue of like Iran and Saudi Arabia, you have issues there too of like Persia, like Persian versus Arab, not just Shiite versus Sunni. So like, and I say it just because I wanna muddy the waters, just to show that the picture is far more complicated than even that question. Like if you're Muslim, do you think this? Well, are you a Muslim who thinks that we desecrated your land in Saudi Arabia and now you want to kill us for desecrating your holy places? That's a little bit different than like, hey, guy in my, English class in my undergrad and college, like, do you want to see me die? Like, when really he's just trying to,
And
get
Bob,
laid just like other people.
I just also, Bob, I just
that's a
also
fair
want to
statement.
bring up that we've had this conversation back in June of 2011 when we had Brother Ali come on the show, and we had the same conversation. And if I remember correctly, I have to go back and listen to the details. To answer your question, it wasn't about, them wanting to kill us because we didn't believe in anything, or or whatever. It was more nuanced, like as what Matt's, kind of what Matt's speaking to.
I see your point there, and I agree. But like I said, it's just the questions that persist in the back of your mind, and maybe they're not always good questions, but you sort of wonder. I don't know. And I don't know anybody who's Muslim, so I guess maybe I should start.
Well, and I think there's something to be said for that. It's very easy to picture the other a certain way when you don't know the other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, what's the fun of time? Atheist, you know what I mean? Atheists, those moralists, they have no ground for morals.
Yeah.
Crazy atheist, you know what I mean?
Well, I mean,
not...
no, but it's a really tough problem. So like, you think about those guys like that Dutch cartoonist who drew a picture of Muhammad. Right now, he was in a lot of trouble. And Salman Rushdie with the Satanic Verses, he had to have a bodyguard because he criticized Islam. And I was even listening to Penn Jillette, who's like one of the most outspoken atheists ever, and they were saying something about Islam, and he was like, you know why I don't criticize Islam? Because I'm afraid to. Because I'm afraid if I do, the worst will happen. And, is he wrong? I don't know. But did Salman Rushdie death threats? Absolutely. I don't know. It is a very tough problem. It's a very tough problem, and I agree on the person-to-person basis. It is complicated and muddy, like you say. But is it wise to piss off a whole group of people that is okay with killing you?
Yes.
Probably not. Yeah, well, do it.
Well, and I think this would be my criticism of.
Wait for Bob's traffic.
It might be mine.
Yes.
Does someone live by a train station?
I know.
Good grief. Every once in a while, it's like, oh, there's the 10 o'clock.
My computer's shitty. I'm sorry.
So to the point about Affleck though, and to the point about Affleck and Maher and Harris. I mean, I don't think criticism from. I mean, everyone. Islam needs to clean their house, which is hard to do because they have no centralized church. But they do need to clean their house. And you know what? Just like with Christians have things to clean in their house, but they shouldn't. If they're a part of an HOA and they're sharing the block with other people, like they shouldn't get pissed when someone points out that their lawn is turning brown and lowering the property value of everyone around them. Like at some point, like
yeah, that's what white people do.
Yeah. I actually can't stand HOAs. I think they're very intrusive. But whatever. It's not important. Anyway, so Christians, I'm okay with receiving criticism from the outside. And honestly, Islam needs to be too. Like Harris and Bill Maher were making an observation that is very, as a stereotype, as a observation, as an armchair observation, like they're making a criticism that's not like unique to them. Other people are asking the same question. And Islam needs to clean its own house, and it should expect criticism from the outside. Christianity has problems in its house. we need to clean it from within, and we shouldn't be surprised when we get criticism from outside. In the case of a person like Affleck, I don't like this sort of like relativistic, feel-good side to liberalism that avoids. So here's the thing about someone like Affleck's critique. He's not interested in really hashing through truth claims in religions or dealing with the complexities of incommensurable worldviews that potentially lead to certain actions. And unfortunately, it's a side to populist liberalism. It's relativism. Like it tends to, like, it's a part of that group that they don't do well with the kind of critiques, the kind of intelligent critiques, or at least pointed critiques that someone like Harris is putting forward, where they're going like, and Harris and Aslan may be right. Harris may not get Islam. He may not been giving it a fair shakedown, but Harris is totally right to put ideas through the fire. Every idea deserves to go through the fire, no matter how many people it's sacred to. And there's a certain part of the liberal culture that Affleck is a part of that doesn't like that. They don't like people's feelings getting hurt. They want to universalize everyone into a feel-good relativism where we don't question ideas and live and let live. But if you really hold a worldview deeply, that's not the world we live in.
Well, I agree with you. And, also bear in mind that Ben Affleck wouldn't have even been on Real Time with Bill Maher if he didn't have a new movie coming out. Like that's the only reason he was there, was to get exposure for his new movie. And so, sure, and he's in a position to adopt this ultra-liberal, why can't we all, I don't have to criticize anybody, why can't we all get along idea. And I do think that whether he got it wrong or whether he gets it wrong or right, Harris kept saying it's about ideas. And the thing he does, he keeps saying, look, it's not about the people, it's about the ideas. And one of the things I do sort of admire about you personally is that, your ideas can withstand criticism. Like, there's nothing you hold so sacred that is beyond criticism. And I agree with you in that. And that every idea should be put through the fire.
Is that the same? Is that the same statement? Kind of the same statement that Christians have used in the past, where they said, "Hate the sin, not the sinner." When you said it's not about ideas, it's not about people, it's about ideas. I mean, because this is something that normally can't be separated.
I think it stems from a similar thought, like to separate the idea from the person. Like, yeah, I think it probably stems at least partly from that mentality, not wanting to attack the person, but wanting to attack a particular idea. Which is, I mean, it's totally Platonic, separating like a theory from the practice and like the world of the forms and the physical world or whatever. But yeah, it probably stems from that. But I mean, I almost think that's, and I don't like the way that phrase gets employed because it's so trite and like any discussion of incommensurable worldviews requires a better conversation than an off-the-cuff comment that keeps people from understanding the nuance of another point of view. And that's why I don't like that view. Like, there's no real attempt to like hear this other person. It's just sort of like, well, we already know what we think about the person. Now we just have to win them to our side. But don't be mean. Like,
and that's kind of why I wanted to say is like with the statement, it's not about the person, it's about the idea. But if the person is committed to that idea and hold that idea, it doesn't seem like that's a valid approach to this question or to the issue or to the conversation. And I just want to put that out there so we can kind of look at it and make sure we're on the right path.
That's not an unfair. Bob, what do you do when a person holds an idea so closely that it's basically a part of them at that point? Like, how does that?
That becomes, but that's. We talk about ideologies, and sometimes it's really hard to have a conversation with somebody that has an ideology that's so sacred and dear to them that there is no discussion to be had because there, I always sort of adopt like the skeptical view. I promise you, dude, if there was like if there was evidence of God today, if there was irrefutable evidence of God today, or ghosts, or Uri Geller, or any of that stuff, if there was incontrovertible evidence, I would have to change my mind. I would have to change my view. It would change everything about me. But you know, part of that mindset is that no matter how much I don't like it, I have to accept the world that's in front of me. And I don't know, it's just one of those things. So, you know, thinking about like don't hate the sin or hate the sin, or it's about ideas. Lots of Muslim countries have blasphemy laws, right? And there's people who are put to death for blasphemy. And did you see the news article about that 14-year-old kid? And I want to say he was in like Georgia, South Carolina, somewhere like that, where he took pictures of himself with a praying Jesus statue. Mm-hmm. And he like had his crotch up by the Jesus statue face, like he was getting a blow from Jesus. And the district attorney prosecuted him
on federal charges.
Really?
Because the state that he did it in, they had blasphemy laws on the books. And one of the laws, it was like that if he would have been in less trouble had he just like knocked the head off the thing or spray painted him. But because it was desecration of people's ideas, he was prosecuted. And I think that he got a big fine. He's on like probation. He has to go through drug testing, and he has like a whole boatload of community service. So this kid got sold up the river for posting pictures of him doing suggestive things with a statue.
So again, he didn't do anything to the statue. He didn't harm any property. Did he actually like whip his penis out to the statue?
No, he was clothed. He didn't. No, right. So there was no indecent exposure. It was just him with his crotch up to the face of the Jesus statue, and we put him on Facebook, and then the wrong people found out, and then the whole town had a fit.
And even if he did pull out his junk,
from what I don't know. From what I read, he did not. From what I read, all the pictures were him clothed.
It was just him dry humping and just being
dry humping.
He was just being a kid. I mean,
right. He was a 14-year-old kid.
I mean, what 14-year-old kid wouldn't do that to Jesus? I mean,
so those ideas were so sacred to somebody that they had to take it out on a 14-year-old kid.
Yeah, that's just sad. Yeah, I don't believe in blasphemy laws. People should be forgiven, not prosecuted.
That's where you're wrong. No, I'm just
yeah.
You need to go back and read the words of Jesus.
Yes.
Or at least for blasphemy, like maybe not murder, but
yeah, that was kind of strange that kid got. And evidently, I haven't checked this out there, but evidently the guy that was the district attorney, he has had a life or a tenure as district attorney that was like rife with scandal. He's been accused of rape and also really criminal stuff, which but
he didn't do it with Jesus.
Not have done, but he was accused of it. Right, but he didn't do it to a Jesus statue. So there you have it.
Well, am I the wrong Christian? Am I the wrong Christian for this show? Because I feel like I'm just here like, yeah, no, dude, totally stupid. Like, yeah, no, totally right.
No, you're
court controversy. Yeah, no, totally fucking stupid, man.
Yeah, no, you're exactly the right guy. You're doing everything that. So we have to talk about, if we're going to talk about laws, and you actually made me think about the when we were talking about the Quran and the Bible is sort of evolving things, and I was like, oh yeah, evolving like the Constitution. And then I was like, oh yeah, like Antonin Scalia sees it. We have to talk about Antonin Scalia. He is frightening.
Yes. Well, you know, it's funny. I'm thinking about taking
That
a
was me,
class.
like throwing a salt. There you go, man. That was a
Segue.
setup.
I'm actually thinking about taking a class. GME offers a religion and law class, and and they go through all the cases that have had to do with religion and all the Supreme Court cases on religion in the U.S. from like, I think the first one was something in Connecticut to like up until now. And so I actually last year what I did is I put together a document with all those cases. It's like a 800-page document with all the major opinions from all those cases for the professor. So I'm thinking about taking the class, and it'll be all those cases. So it's like a huge document. It takes like 2 minutes to load. I asked him about the Scalia thing, where he said that religion. You're talking about the thing where he said religion is more protected than non-religion.
Right, and he made a statement that said essentially that, and that that he was giving a speech at some religious college in Colorado, I think, and he made a statement that the fight for the religious right has to be against the rise of secularism and the idea that freedom from religion is a constitutional right.
Bob.
I think the train's back.
Yeah, I guess evidently also he made some statement about how his interpretation of the Constitution is not based on any any modern lens. He just looks at what he perceives the founding fathers would have wanted, and then he goes with that. And then he sort of made some offhanded comment where he's like, oh, this job is super easy and I don't lose any sleep at all. It's a piece of cake. Whereas other justices like Ginsburg have been like, we agonize over every decision because of its long-term implications and what we're going to do to people. And he was just sort of offhanded like, yeah, make a decision easy, piece of cake. This job is the easiest ever.
Yeah. Well, I think, in the case of Ginsburg, they're kind of much more into the evolving world, social pattern life view. And again, with Scalia, he's a strict constructionist or whatever, who's trying to find original meaning. I mean, both views in their own way are very subjective because on the one hand, who's to say your interpretation of the founders is the most accurate? And on the other hand, who's to say
the interpretation of the founders, we know that the founders were not of one mind about this type of thing.
Yeah, no. Well, going to the issue of like whether or not freedom from religion is protected, I actually asked Farina about this, and apparently, I guess in the discussions for crafting the first few amendments, there was a discussion about whether or not it should be the issue of freedom of conscience. Like that was some of the language that got tossed around, freedom of conscience. But one of the things they opted for was the protection of religion. And one of the reasons they did that, and freedom as a thing in and of itself is protected. Religion as a thing in and of itself is protected. Like religion is its own social institution and its own kind of social reality that is protected under the Constitution. And the language tends to go in that favor versus just sort of a broader freedom of conscience language. Even though we understand that there is freedom of conscience, like, I think that's part of what Scalia was getting at. At least that's what one of the things my professor talked about was the issue of freedom as a thing in of itself, specifically being like it's not a part, like it's a thing within society, a reality within society that is protected.
Well, I think that it should be. I mean, certainly there has to be a constitutional protection for religion in that they can't make a law that obstructs free expression of religion. I support that. I'm behind that 110%.
Except when it calls for killing the infidels.
Right. Well, you can't say like, I'm going to make a law that all infidels should die. I mean, that's exactly what they're trying to avoid. And I 100% support a person's, free expression of their religion. Absolutely, they should do it. But at the same time, there's these instances where I forget which court it was, or it was a city council in maybe Florida or something, where after the Supreme Court ruling that said that you could have sectarian prayer.
Greece versus Galloway. Greece versus Galloway. It's a town in
Right. So that was the
New York.
decision. So a guy in a town was like, "Oh, I'm going to give. I represent an atheist group, and we're going to give the opening invocation, and it'll be a non-sectarian invocation. It'll be non-religious." And he got booted out because they said, like, "No, we can't have anybody who doesn't believe in anything. A person who believes in nothing isn't allowed to." So by his non-belief, he was excluded from participation in the democratic process. And that is, they may not have wanted him there, but his participation is constitutionally protected, just the way a Jew's participation is constitutionally protected, a Muslim, a Christian, a Buddhist, everybody's participation is constitutionally protected. And so that's what I mean by freedom from religion.
Yeah, no, I think each person, I mean, you've heard my take on this before, like, every member of society should, like, I'm not for the banning of prayers before things if the person asked to, like, lead the opening is religious. But like I said, when the one Hindu guy was asked to lead the prayer before Congress and the whole "we are Christians and patriots" thing happened. Like, I mean, for me, I would think, if you are religious, you should potentially maybe get to lead a prayer if you want to, according to your own tradition. If you're not religious, then some type of alternative, non-religious but still meaningful invocation of some kind, like you've heard me say, I would rather live in a pluralistic society where all those are represented in those civil formalities, and that's what we're talking about. We're talking about civil formalities and the right to who gets to participate and how in those formalities, which is really kind of, I mean, in some ways it's kind of silly because these aren't like it's funny how petty this gets on more so the religious side, to like take this stand for like, we got to say a prayer at the beginning and that shows something, like when it's like,
I agree. It's like all those victories they're symbolic, and they're symbolic at best and pyrrhic at worst. But there's also the groups now that not only did they kick the guy out for, he wanted to have an atheist invocation, but now they're all upset because the LaVeyan Satanists are showing up and wanting to do a satanic invocation. And that has everybody's panties in a bunch. But that's the price you pay for the pluralistic participation that you're talking about. And you may be okay with it, but other people are totally not.
Yeah. Which in the case of Greece versus Galloway, I should be more familiar with it than I am. The issue again was that everyone else wanted a sectarian prayer. Was that?
Yes. And basically Scalia had if I remember right, Scalia had the majority opinion on that, and basically he said that sectarian prayer is okay as long as you allow everybody to participate. And so now, like I said, now the LaVeyan Satanists are showing up, and everybody's having a fit about it. But as soon as that happens, then the government finds itself in that uncomfortable position of saying, well, this is a legitimate religion and this is not. And this is a legitimate belief and this is not. And the government should not be in that business.
Part of me wishes I'd taken a closer look at that Grease Galloway case when I copied and pasted it from Justia.
Well, I could be wrong about some of the finer details, but as I understand it, that's how it shakes out.
Huh.
So if you were attending a city council meeting, would you be okay with a guy showing up from the local chapter of the LaVeyan Satanists and he's going to offer the invocation to start the meeting? Would you be okay with that?
He hangs out with us, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And Jason's surrounded by fire right now, so. If I was a member of the town council, I mean, hopefully at this point I'm principled enough where I could maybe grit my teeth. We talked about this before, like, it probably wouldn't be the most comforting thing for me. But I also realize, like, I'm in a civil, that's a civil area. Like, I'm sharing that space with others I disagree with. And because I'm not trying to win a Christian nation, like, it doesn't.
Well, that's sort of the point, though, too, is that government space needs to be accessible to all faiths.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really, and essentially that's what Scalia's ruling is that you can have religion in government space as long as all religions are allowed to be in that government space. But now that we're actually putting it into practice, people are objecting to other religions that they do not agree with being present in the government space.
Yeah. It's really, I mean, it's going to be sloppy no matter what. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I would rather see them there than not there, just because I'm not sure if imposing, because secularism is a deep grounding. Like, to have a purely secular environment is a worldview choice, and those aren't the only people in the public space. The problem is no one really knows how to share well. And part of the problem is, as a country, we're not homogenous. And people don't really think about how to not just be homogenous.
Well, I mean, I agree. We don't share well, and then it becomes like everybody's trying to have their voice heard above the crowd. But I sort of, I don't know, like in the case of for government to do what government does, I think that religion is not a necessary part. And I'm okay with a politician's religious background or religious beliefs informing their actions or informing their decisions, but I don't think that religion has a part in the function of government. And so rather than have government in that uncomfortable position of deciding which is the correct religion and which is not, just don't have religion in the government space. But the government protects the right of religion to be everywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, the only problem with that is, like, I think that's tricky. In as much as, like, we tend to see religion as beliefs, I think the Establishment Clause tends to hold religion more as institution, like, much more of, like, I mean, they're in their mind they have Anglicanism, you know what I mean? That's their background. So they're thinking no established church, as opposed to simply having free-floating sectarians who all have their individual views and bring those to the table. Like, I'm not sure if, again, this goes back to the idea of, like, the idea versus the people. There are just sometimes where I'm not sure you can separate the idea and the person that easily. Like, if anything, you have to almost admit that you can't and then try to find an overlapping consensus.
Yeah, you know, and you're probably right about that, and there'll probably be this uncomfortable compromise where nobody. That's how these things will usually end.
Well, we probably won't even get that, because right now our Congresses are just having fun trying to keep their incumbency. Like, we're not even dealing with issues anymore. We're dealing with people just trying to keep their power. and who aren't even trying to govern minimally, which is its own
you're right.
kind-
Everything is terrible.
Everything's terrible.
.com.
It's all
Everything
awful.
is terrible.
Well, guys, we
I
got
know.
10 minutes.
I'm sorry, Jason.
We got 10 minutes. I was just giving a time check.
Yeah, all right, right on. Yeah, so I don't know. We'll see how this stuff shakes out. There's also the I keep waiting for the LaVeyan Satanists to move forward with their statue of Baphomet, because they're going to put it in right next to somebody's statue of the Ten Commandments, and that's going to piss a whole bunch of people off. But I say good.
Yes, it will.
I don't know. I mean, I on one hand, I see your point where you can't just those religious ideas become so fundamental to a person's identity and who they are and what they stand for, and it is hard to separate them out. But I think that should be the job of the public figure. I think that should be, when you sign up for public office, you check your religion at the door, because you have to realize that you're going to be representing people who may not have the same religious view as you, who could even be of the same religion but not have the same religious view, because we all know that there's opposing viewpoints even within the same religion.
Well, certainly I wouldn't want a congressman forcing Muslims to adhere to a view of the Trinity. But those worldviews will still end up shaping certain values and ways of looking at life. Like when politicians go into public office, they don't check their own values. They don't at least check all of their values at the door. They tend to sell them to corporations instead.
Yes.
Well, right. That's a completely other problem.
But it's all intertwined.
I mean, it is, but now you get a guy like Scalia who has just flat out said that he hasn't just checked his religion at the door. He's done just the opposite, where he's decided that he's going to legislate from the bench to advance his religious beliefs.
Well, I mean,
Okay, he didn't say that, but in essence, I think that's what it means.
I mean, honestly, as a religious person, it's not that I don't find Scalia annoying, but I wouldn't trust Ginsburg. You know what I mean? Like I don't think Ginsburg's entirely wrong, and I think she probably called it with the Baphomet statue issue, and even the problems that would come from the Hobby Lobby case. But deep down, I don't feel like when I think of certain justices, I would want answering the call for the religious person, or hearing the case and deciding on them. I think Scalia has a better. He's more. I forget. Was it Durkheim or I forget who said it? Talked about being religiously musical, kind of understood the religious soul a bit more, and the religious citizen, the religious person. I don't trust someone like Kagan or Ginsburg on the issue of religion in public life, because I almost feel like whatever the role would be between overdoing it like Scalia or underdoing it, let's say this is the middle. I feel like Ginsburg and Kagan fall down here, and I feel like Scalia and Thomas are probably up here. So if I could find that person in the middle who wouldn't disenfranchise non-religious people, and also not religious people who wouldn't who wouldn't be further up, I don't know, for me personally, I would find, I mean, and this is coming from where just I'm coming from, I'm not as a religious person, I'm less afraid of Scalia. Just because I feel like Ginsburg might not necessarily get the whole religion thing all the way.
That's funny, because as a non-religious person, Scalia terrifies me, and I think Ginsburg is a rock star.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's, and again, I say that I say that as someone who, and it, as I say, trippy. I mean, I said that about Scalia, but I would worry about his comments that, Scalia is not my favorite guy. Like he's not. Like he's too establishment for me. He's too Christendom for me. Like but I think he gets religion more than Ginsburg does.
Well, but I would also sort of argue that the Supreme Court justices, they don't have to get religion; they just have to get the law. And and religion is protected by the law, and so their decisions should reflect protection of religious liberties, while at the same time keeping religion out of government. Because again, like I said, that I feel that the Establishment Clause is very important, and that it protects people's religious liberties as well as keeping them out of the government. Because what would happen if we had a government institution that was purely Christian and then started legislating against people who were Muslim or atheist? That's what the Establishment Clause protects against.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Well, darn it, Matt.
Yeah, no, I don't want to. I wouldn't want to see anyone persecuted or legislated against. Like, that would create a very different nation, and I don't think it would be healthy.
But my point is that those, it's funny. Like, they always talk about that they always use that Jeffersonian metaphor quote about the wall of separation between church and state. And there's that one group that's very anti-Establishment Clause, and they're called the Wall Builders. And then other groups have advocated against separation of church and state, and they talk about tearing down the wall brick by brick. And so, when you start, thinking about that metaphor of the wall, when you start removing the bricks of the wall, then religion begins creeping into government, and eventually the wall comes down. Well, that's why I advocate a strict separation.
Right. I mean, the issue with the wall, again, though, is we're talking about walls between the running of institutions. So the official institution, i.e. Anglican Church, Catholic Church. I mean, the problem with the U.S. and how we understand the Establishment Clause is we're too Protestant. Because we understand religion as the beliefs I hold. And so separation must mean that those beliefs in no way affect your public office decisions. And I don't think that's what the Establishment Clause means. I think the Establishment Clause is actually talking about imagine the Vatican calling the shots. Like, that's not individual people like going in. That's another institution trying to dominate the state, like an institution as a whole trying to dominate the state. Same thing with the Anglican Church trying to dominate the religious life of England, and so you had all these Protestant sects getting out. And
you're absolutely right. The institution, the religious institution, shouldn't be calling the shots. And we've said before, it's okay for someone's religious beliefs to influence their actions and their decisions, but that religious institution has to be outside government.
Yeah, the institution.
I don't expect, if someone has a religious belief that it's hard to put it into words. A person's religious beliefs, sort of provides a moral compass for them, and many people it serves as their moral compass. And I would expect them to make decisions based on that moral compass.
Yeah.
But if you start making laws which we used to have, like your store can't be open on Sunday because that's God's day. Well, I'm an atheist. I should be able to open my store on Sunday. Right? that's where religion is creeping into the institution. And there are some people that want to put that back.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more concerned about. I mean, with the whole Sunday off thing, I'd be worried about actually giving people a day off. But it was the Jews and the Christians gave us the weekend. Woo! Let's hope Muslims give us Friday. 3-day weekend.
I'm oversimplifying, but you get what I mean.
Yeah, no, I know.
Did I tell you when I was in United Arab Emirates and we were at a restaurant and it was a TGI Thursday,
That's really funny.
which was weird, but we went in.
And we have time.
Oh,
That was like the voice of Satan telling us time is up.
well, he's got the fire.
The flames of hell upon us.
He should have the little critter next to him,
Oh, I should.
or like just in the background.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I should do that. But yes, it is that time.
Matt,
Do
final thoughts on this?
do y'all want to give final words, like 2-minute final words, or are you happy?
I mean, after talking to Bob about this, like, I kind of want to take that religion and law class now because I need to know my crap about this subject.
I wish I could take it with you.
Yeah, I
We can be study buddies.
mean, yeah. We are. No, dude, the Establishment Clause is totally about. No, after you, Grease vs. Galloway totally said.
Oh my god, I hate it when you do me. All right, well, Matt,
Wait a minute.
yeah.
Let's back up.
What did you just say?
He said.
I don't like Matt's Bob impression.
Okay, so okay. So, yeah.
All right, let's wrap this up.
Now it's come down to ridicule and ad hominem attacks.
So Bob doesn't like when Matt does him,
I do.
and
I
then
don't
the
like it.
person.
That's what I said.
Attack the person, not the idea.
attack the act, not the sodomy.
Yeah.
So anyway, Matt, I think that's the end of the show. I want to thank you for listening. If you have any questions or comments, you can give us a call at 757-337-2195 or email us at nonreligious@zombie-popcorn.com. And if you are a Windows 8 user, phone or tablet or PC, please go download our Zombie Popcorn app in the Windows Store. It can be found as Zombie Popcorn. And you can actually watch the shows. You can comment and call us during the shows. And the next update will include a live feed of our shows. Thank you and have a good night.
Wait.
What's
So-
up?
I'm practically sitting where I'm going to sleep. Can I? Here's how I want to end this in a very Mr. Rogers way.
Do it.
With like a. Now it's time to say goodbye to all you suckers now. FUC. We'll see you again soon.
Good night, Matt.
Good night, Matt.